Welcome to the happening and beautiful city of Mombasa, Kenya. Today we are going to discuss on an important topic, that is marine pollution. We are also celebrating Marpole at 50 as decreed by the IMO. So here we are going to regroup different Kenyan agencies like the KMA, like the KPA, like the shipping industry, so as to understand how prepared is the Kenyan authorities in case of marine pollutions. We are not only going to discuss on the problems, so with our expert teams of panelists, we are also going to see the possibilities of how well to address these issues. So be with me, the discussion, the debate is going to be very interesting. Thank you and have a nice day. In the heart of Mombasa, Kenya, a significant and pressing challenge beckons us. It's a challenge that transcends borders and affects us all. This challenge is marine pollution. Under the banner of the Port Security and Safety of Navigation Programs Awareness Campaign, and the theme is Marine Pollution, Navigating Towards a Cleaner Future. This campaign is more than a series of events. It's a clarion call for change, a catalyst for awareness, and a blueprint for a safer, more sustainable marine environment. Our campaign aligns with the 2023 World Maritime Day theme, Marpole at 50. Our commitment goes on. It's a stark reminder that the battle against marine pollution has been ongoing for half a century. This program, financed by the European Union under the coordination of the Indian Ocean Commission and co-implemented by the International Maritime Organization, Interpol, and UNODC, signals the unwavering commitment to intensify maximum efforts in securing all ports involved and safeguarding the navigation routes to prevent pollution in any form. At the heart of our campaign lies the forum debate, a crucible of ideas, knowledge, and solutions. Here, we confront the complex facets of marine pollution, dissecting its causes and consequences, and with the guidance of our distinguished panelists, we aim to unearth innovative strategies, technologies, and practices to combat this menace head-on. But our purpose extends beyond the confines of this room. It has to reach out to the public, to the communities whose lives intertwine with our marine ecosystem. In collaboration with the Kenya Ports Authority, the Kenya Maritime Authority, the Indian Ocean Commission social media platforms, with the press, we are taking this message to the masses. As we embark on this journey, ponder this. Our actions today will ripple through time, shaping the future of our marine environment and the lives that depend on it. The questions we ask and the answers we seek will determine the path we reach. Today, we don't just navigate the seas, we navigate towards a cleaner future, one where our oceans thrives, our ports stand as beacons of security, and our shared commitment illuminates the way forward. Welcome to a forum that aims to leave a lasting impact for the seas, for Mombasa, and for the region. May I ask Raj, the officer in charge, to just say a few words on behalf of IOC?
We are at the service of the region. And marine pollution is one of the areas in which we've been working. You've heard surely about Wakasho. It is a vessel that, went directly hit the coral reef just a few kilometers off the southern coast of Mauritius and spilled over 1,000 tons of oil. the risks are there. It is increasing with time. So this is indeed in this context that we think it's important to seize the opportunity that we are here to organize this small exchange with you all. So our role is to sensitize and get the key stakeholders concerned to be well prepared.
So my first question comes to Tony. Could you please enlighten our audience on the broader concept of marine pollution? Well, is it solely related to oil spill or disposal of waste into oceans and lagoons, or is there more to it?
Marine pollution, as defined in MAPOL, it has got several annexes, and Annex 1 specifically looks at prevention of pollution from oil spill, that is a liquid substance. The second annex looks at regulation aspect of the pollution. And if you look at the third annex, looks at the prevention by harmful substance carried in package form by vessels. And Annex 4 looks at prevention of pollution by sewage from the ship. And if you look at Annex 5, looks at pollution prevention by garbage from ship, that is a dumping of garbage from vessel. And then Annex 5 looks at prevention or prevention of air pollution by ship. So it is not only oil spill alone, it's quite broad on those areas that I've mentioned. And as having coming from the Port Authority,
Yes.
we play a key role in, especially just at the port itself, where we've got an active team that implements the MAPOL issues of monitoring during boarding, the substance carried by the ship waste, how it's disposed. So we are very, very categorical as we do the MAPOL.
It's well structured.
Well structured.
Thank you. Let me come to Dr. Michele. Explain the concept of pollution. What is your take on this marine pollution thing?
The pollution, especially the oil spill pollution, can be voluntary or involuntary. Nonetheless, it is important that the countries, they perform the activities which it is in their mandate, in their right, especially when a vessel, a merchant vessel, is calling the port, by conducting inspection on board, by verifying if those vessels are compliant with the standard for the safety of navigation. It's important that before a vessel calls a port, the country, in this case the port, the staff working in the port, is capable of preventing any problem which might come when dealing with harmful substances.
Thank you, Dr. Stallone. Director, you're from the shipping. You deal with cargo ships, you deal with luxurious cruise ships. So what are the critical factors contributing to the marine pollution? Do they play a role?
There is a lot of waste which comes from the cruise ships, especially because it involves a lot of cooking. So this is where disposal of sewerage, what are the mechanisms that are used to dispose these sewerages from the cruise ships. So what is required in any docking, the port has to have what we call a reception facility. About plastic, they also have to have a facility the plastics can be disposed.
My next question to Mr. Michael. So what are the critical factors contributing to marine pollution in, for example, Kenya or the Eastern African region? What are the critical factors of marine pollution in this? Because you're from the Kenya Maritime Authority, probably you can enlighten our audience in this topic.
Well, in the region, there is that lack of adequate inspection for these ships. I would also say enforcement and surveillance. Right now, I think most of the capacity within the region is within maybe less than 3 nautical miles. That enforcement can be done very
Not more than that.
sufficiently. But more than that, most countries in this region really at the high seas, you really
not know what is happening. So most of the notifications that we get from the ships that are passing within the high seas, within the areas beyond 3 nautical miles, because of inadequate surveillance and enforcement in those areas. So then you get notified by the ships that, okay, we've seen, for example, a slick here. Could you come and verify if it's an oil spill or road?
He spoke about NCG, he spoke about the KMA, there is the Ministry of Environment. So if I come to you, being from the Port Authority, you have a role to play. What is the exact role when we talk about if there is a case of pollution? Who should act first?
So with that, we look at that issue of, in case of an incident, as a collective responsibility. Although as a port authority, we have an implementing aspect on MAPOL. And in view of that, we have invested heavily in terms of pollution control equipment. And we do not only take it as a government responsibility to ensure that there is that collective effort, and there is a body actually established.
And what is the body?
It's called the Oil Spill Mutual Aid Group. We call it OSMAG.
It involves?
It involves the industry.
Okay, private sector?
Private sector, and anybody who wants to register as an oil marketer must be a member of OSMAG. And most critical, you can have all that, but without proper drills and exercise.
Drill exercises?
Yes.
How often it is conducted?
We normally conduct drills and exercise at least once a year.
So when we talk about the multi-actor approach, different players playing key role. So what is your take when we have an accident, when we have a serious case, like, for example, an oil spill or any case of pollution which is serious? How we should approach that?
This is where the port security program jumps in. The port security program is a program that is addressing a specific area of the marine domain. And it is also addressing the protection of the marine environment from oil spill pollution. Kenya, just like many other countries, has ratified a number of international maritime conventions, including the MARPOL. But just as many other countries, when it comes to domestication, there is a very low percentage compared to the numbers of conventions which are ratified.
Thank
Please.
you, Dr. Director, when we talk about legislations, when we talk about measures, when we talk about laws, so let's take the example, the case for Kenya, when we talk about port security measures. So what has been done in the past or now in order to enhance or to prevent or mitigate marine pollution incidents? Are there any substantive legislations, laws, or measures in place?
Kenya is a member of IMO,
Yeah.
and we have ratified quite a number of IMO conventions.
Yes.
Among those IMO conventions that we have ratified is MABO. Once you sign to a convention, you have to domesticate it through ratification process. So Kenya has been developing a number of regulations. So once we have the regulations, then we are able now to prosecute, we are able to give fines, to charge and give fines. So we can remand, we can arrest, we can do all those things. And Kenya as a nation, actually we have the National Oil Spill Committee. It's functional and has very senior people, the level of PS, and at times when these organizations which work in the port, when they have their drills, the national government is also involved. So we have several mechanisms. And also we have courts up to the port level.
So when I come to the KMA, do you have any specific role when it comes to marine pollution deaths? What do you do?
They are alive to the fact that different agencies, for example, KPA, have their own plans, contingency plans, and that plan is to respond for example, harbor speeds. But and that is the jurisdiction of the port, harbor speed. But then when it's the size of for example, Wakashu, it becomes a national issue. So then when it comes to that level, then there's the National Oil Contingency Plan, which takes a role in terms of coordination of that issue. And in that respect, then the KMA, Kenya Maritime Authority, becomes the incident commander for an incident of national significance. But then there is also the Kenya Coast Guard, which is also part of those that will be playing a major role in terms of coordinating the incident, in terms of the actual cleanup operations and so on. We also do, we have our own coastal control officers, which go on board the ships whenever they come to the port of Mombasa to do inspections to see if they've complied with the relevant provisions of international conventions and national regulations. We have, as you said, the sensitization
campaigns.
We do a lot of safety awareness. We do a lot of marine pollution awareness campaigns and so forth.
Thank you so much, Mr. Michael Baru. So now I will invite the floor. Quickly, if you have 2 or 3 questions that I will take, and then we will ask our esteemed panelists to give their views on this. Raj?
I was mentioning that we organized a simulation of Wakashu 2 weeks ago in Mauritius. And what we've agreed is that the next simulation exercise will be done in Kenya.
Is it?
Ooh.
And I would suggest that the director, you take the lead in getting all the key stakeholders around. Yes. So I would suggest that committee is established from here, because that will be done in Mombasa, and that we start getting it prepared. And by February next year, we already have the concept note or the planning of everything and all the authorities set, and that the international community is already informed about the event. So I think that we will be, I would suggest that you take this up, and eventually we keep on discussing through ESP and the MAZE program to organize that. Most probably the best time would be maybe in September, October next year, but up to you to decide dates. But let's already inform the international community that we'll organize that in Kenya in such and such time, and we give at least 6-7 months of advance notice to everyone.
Kenya will be in the limelight again. Having such regional exercises, we will invite the members of the press also and the private sector to see how we can make them an important pillar of this exercise. So, any comments?
I wanted to add more to what my boss has mentioned. When an oil spill happens, who is the first person?
Yes.
And I would like to add to what Michael has said. It's basically on the tier response. When it's tier 1, as the authority, we will respond to it. And as you mentioned, we have the Oil Spill Mutual Aid Group, which is a group of so many companies in the marketing field. Right now, there's an exercise that is ongoing whereby various members have been picked from each group. They're going around checking on the conditions of the equipment that are there in the warehouses of these marketers. So we have the Kenya Pipeline, we have the Vivo, Total, all of them.
Private sector.
The private sectors. Actually, I can say the private sector in Kenya are more proactive in terms of the pollution bit. Like right now in Kisumu, OSMAG has already deployed equipment because as a country we've started exporting petroleum products through the Lake Victoria. But the ministries and the government agencies were still lagging behind.
Let me come to Mr. Tony. You know, when we speak about Wakasho, it's tragedy. So what can be done to minimize the impact of pollution on the ecosystem and the communities at large?
Another very important thing is information sharing.
Information sharing.
With information sharing, then we can be able to share ideas. And how do you share information? If you've got regional centers that
Yes.
can be able to
Relay
update,
information.
relay information. And then from there, then government talking, and we can look at best way of deploying resources to handle in case of that kind of an incident happening. Another recommendation, which has already been said here, is a more proactive approach. Now we are talking about an incident that's happened.
So what do you mean by more proactive approach? Do the different agencies need to play more critical roles, or
Yes.
more coordinated approach, or
more coordinated approach? In fact, the issue now should be what should be done to prevent those kind of incidents happening, as much as what should be done when they happen. We should concentrate more on the prevention side by proper inspection, ensuring that the vessels are compliant to the various regulations, ensuring that we domesticate the various conventions that we've ratified, and PSP is one of the platforms. I'm really glad that it's addressing these issues. So I can say we are in the right direction, and I'm sure in case, God forbid, an incident like that happens, some of those lessons learned by Mauritius, we are glad they're also sharing with the region. We can be
the Mauritian authority sharing with
to
the
share that information, how they handled some of the lessons learned, then they will help the region to better address the issue.
So we are using that as a case study?
Absolutely, absolutely.
The port security program is a program which is supporting what already exists, and the concept has foreseen an architecture which is enshrined into two main centers. One center for the collection of the information and the fusion of information, which is located in Antananarivo in Madagascar, and another center for the organization and the coordination of the operation at sea, which is based in Victoria, in Seychelles. So whenever there is an information, there is an event, through the first channel of communication, who are the seconded officers, the international liaison officers from the participating countries, including Kenya, the flow of communication is undertaken immediately, so that there will not be waste of time in reacting, in responding to this emergency.
Thank you, Dr. Michele, in shedding some light for these two centers. Director, when we talk about innovative technologies or legislations related to technology, so what innovative technologies and strategies can be employed to reduce marine pollution in the region?
There is technology that is being adapted worldwide in terms of ship constructions, ships that can be able to emit a certain percentage of carbon. You know, the IMO strategy is to have almost zero emission of
Zero
carbon.
emission, yeah.
Yeah, in the year 2030.
Yes.
So we are among the global village that are advocating for zero emission of carbon. What they're doing at the port of Mombasa is they're doing what they call power to shore, whereby when the ships dock in Mombasa, instead of using the diesel, they can use electricity to reduce the emission of carbon. We are also members of Indian Ocean Memorandum of Understanding, so that if we are fighting it, we fight it as a region, and we also fight it as a country.
So how can local communities actively contribute to a cleaner marine environment? So what is your take on this?
Most people affected by port operations are the coastal communities. And we've really tried to engage the port communities in many respects. At the port, I'll give an example. There's what we call the green port policy. So the green port policy has so many activities that interact with the local community.
Okay.
For example, there's a mangrove restoration program.
Mangrove restoration program.
Yes,
Yeah.
mangrove restoration programs that the local community are heavily engaged in such activities. And they are planting quite so many mangrove around the port area where they have been impacted by the port activity. So the port engaged the communities to rehabilitate that mangrove ecosystem. And also there are so many outreach programs between the port, the Kenya Maritime Authority, and the communities.
Tony, how can individuals and communities actively contribute to preventing marine pollution in Mombasa?
We've been engaging the community in terms of creating awareness that they have a responsibility. And part of that awareness, we normally, there's a beach cleanup exercise that are normally conducted. There's also the issues of advocating or preventing issues of pollution from shore, from the community. Just managing on how they also handle the waste, their day-to-day waste.
So, Dr. Michele, what more can be done to bring the NGO, to bring the youth, to bring the communities on board to prevent marine pollution, if in Mombasa or in the region?
They can play and they need to play an important role, especially in assisting governmental authorities, because like the fishermen at sea, they normally are the eyes and the ears of what is happening. So they can proactively intervene. But also, I see their commitment, their role, going much further, because conducting cleaning beach operations or organizing workshops and seminars, it will also instill a culture since the early stage, since the primary school. You should try to bring the topic of the importance of the ocean, clean ocean, in the topics to be studied, because especially for a coastal state like Kenya, and an important city like Mombasa, which has a port which is very well performing, and it can generate a lot of revenue. There is a need to invest in that. There is a need to develop capacities locally, and this is also one of the activities that the port security program is already in the pipe, because last year delegates from the beneficiary countries, including Kenya, had the chance to visit the European Maritime Safety Agency in Lisbon. And all the countries asked, can this state-of-the-art technology be placed at our disposal in case of emergency? And the reply was yes. So the Indian Ocean Commission will initiate this process for a sort of cooperation with the member states of the Eastern Africa, Southern Africa, and Indian Ocean region. Think about the CO2, the emission of the CO2, and the consequences which is already having on the global warming. Think about the, ice on the mountains, which is not there anymore. Think about, for a second, the sea level of seas and oceans, which is increasing. So it's important that we put in place from the government side all the initiatives to reduce this CO2 emission.
When we talk about, marine pollution, the causes, the risk involved, so if you can shed some light.
The first thing that comes to my mind is the need to build capacity. And when we build capacity, we definitely have to consider the conventions that are in place with regard to marine pollution, specifically aligned towards MAPOL Annex 6, given that is the mandate of the MTCC Africa, and as well as the biofouling guidelines that we are having on board of the year 2011, and they are currently undergoing revision. There are courses that have been developed by the International Maritime Organization. MTCC Africa also has ability to disseminate their online courses. They are free. Upon completion of the course, you get a certificate from the International Maritime Organization. At MTCC, we conducted pilot projects for over a span of 4 years. The advantage is that the pilot project reports are available on our website. You will get to see some of the gaps in the industry as well as in the region, because these are new and emerging aspects in the industry: energy efficiency, technology transfer, innovation, some of the aspects that support green port policies. As MTCC Africa, taking note, we are hosted by an institution of higher learning, partnering in the collaboration with the consortium members, that is Kenya Maritime Authority and the Kenya Ports Authority. We are in the right trajectory to make sure that there is a semblance of integrating the industry, perhaps a quote-unquote public-private partnership of sorts, much as we are still considered still in the governmental sector.
And question, our esteemed panelists are here to enlighten you all. So if I can, we have one question here.
So my first question goes to KPA. Lost containers at sea. Which measures are KPA putting in place to ensure that we limit this kind of marine pollution? Then my second question is on the role of fishing industry in marine pollution. Every time we talk about maritime safety, we only think of the ports. We have very many boats fishing outside there, losing very many nets that are entangling our propellers every day. So I know that as a country, State Department of Shipping and Maritime Affairs through Glonta project are putting measures in place. So my question is to IOC, what are we doing to address pollution from sea-based sources? Yes.
So probably my colleague, Mr. Raj Mohabir, can shed some light.
Then my last one is, do you want to go the segregated way? We deal with MAPOL Convention. What about London Convention and these protocols?
What about?
London Convention and these protocols. Are there plans to come up with an umbrella law to deal with sea-based sources of marine pollution, just the same way the Minister of the Environment has done a very good job in coming up with Sustainable Waste Management Act 2022? Thank you.
Any other questions?
You've been talking about marine pollution. I'm just asking about the agricultural runoff. It's a kind of marine pollution, and we are going to talk about it.
Do we have facilities, or whose responsibility is it to have facilities to deal with pollutants and any other disposal, and especially ones owned by the states?
So I will invite Mr. Raj Mohabir first to talk on behalf of the IOC, how at a regional level we are addressing pollution. Then I will invite Mr. Tony. Mr. Michael will answer on part of Mr. Segura, and then I will invite Dr. Michele to shed some light. So first and foremost, I invite Mr. Raj Mohabir to explain on the role of IOC in the regional pollution thing.
It's been a long time ago, more than 2 decades ago, more precisely in 1997, that we have realized that countries cannot deal with major marine pollutions alone. That we need to get the countries to be prepared and be ready when this happens. 1998, we implemented 2 major projects. In 1999 to 2004, we implemented a project, but it was only IOC countries. And the idea was that we have to get the countries to be ready to provide equipments, training, but also legal basis, so that you are legally organized. And there are institutions that, as was explained, institutions that have the mandate and they know what needs to be done. And then in 2008 to 2012, we came up with another big project, but this time we included Kenya, Tanzania, Mozambique, South Africa, all the Eastern African coastal countries, because individually it doesn't make sense, but the island states work alone. So the idea was, and the project even was called Maritime Highway. It means then that you will compel vessels to take particular routes, and then you reserve equipment in critical places so that when there is a pollution, you can act quickly. But then it would mean that the countries agree to work together. So we even had a agreement signed by all the countries, including Kenya, have a copy of that agreement that was signed. It was also said that because we need to coordinate all these activities, we need to have a regional coordination center. And in 2011, again, by the end of the Maritime Highway project, there was also a decision by all the countries in the region to have SAMSA, South African Maritime Safety Agency, to coordinate on behalf of the whole region. And there were quite a long list of tasks that they were supposed to do, 2011 December. And since then, our role was finished. So we kept quiet until Wakasho happened, and then we saw around and we look around, we see that, all this were done, but most of the countries didn't have their national plan exercised every year. You have to exercise, you have to test it. Do they have each of them the equipment that are needed? Is there a regional mechanism to pool the country's assets so that we can deal with it when something happens? Mauritius, Wakasho event showed that that was not the case. So we chipped in again in last year, and we started working on that, and that's how we have come with a plan, a regional plan. We organized the field training exercise in Mauritius 2 weeks ago, and we're planning to organize the next one next year in Kenya. But meanwhile, we are also trying to mobilize funds to have a program again to hold every year exercises, because practice makes perfect. So we are trying to get the key institutions at national level to organize, and how they will call upon the other international partners to help when something is needed.
Thank you so much, Mr. Raj. Now I will give the floor to Tony.
The first is on the commercial aspect, that any cargo destined to Kenya, it must be the marine insurance in place. That is basically for on the commercial side of to monitor, to ensure that the cargo is delivered to the owner. The other aspect is on the government in terms of monitoring of the cargo destined to the country. The vessels are required to, give pre-arrival information, give information in advance, and it is normally contained on the manifest. So if there's any discrepancy, especially if the container is destined to the country, we can be able to monitor that. And then the other intervention is normally engagement with the industry, with the shipping industry. And we normally, every 2 weeks, we sit down with the port community, we have a session with the Kenya Shippers Council, Kenya Shipping Agents Association, and we look at all those issues, and we discuss issues, and we look at ways of finding a solution. The government has also put mechanism to monitor movement of vessels within our waters. That is through the Joint Operations Center, which is also the National Maritime Information Sharing Center based at Kilindini. And with that, we have installed AIS transponders. And the whole aim is to look abnormal behavior, vessels stopping in the middle of the ocean, just to monitor what is happening around that. So in as much as we put this intervention, we cannot deny such kind of things could happen. But in terms of the mitigation measures, I think there's quite adequate measures put in place.
I will leave the floor to Mr. Baru from a KMA perspective to respond to the query.
One, by way of a Marine Pollution Act, which we really fully developed that act back in 2014, which incorporated all the international conventions that as a country we had ratified by then. So we developed a proper marine pollution bill. The second approach was we have the Merchant Shipping Act 2009, and it has a provision that requires or obliges us to come up with the regulations on marine pollution under the Merchant Shipping Act.
Thank you. So I will invite Dr. Michele, especially for the young
Yes.
gentleman concerning the pesticides, agricultural.
Well, thank you so much, Vidur. Although I am not a farmer, but I can easily understand the consequences of using those pesticides into the agriculture. Then by default, they will go deeper and deeper until they reach also our seas and oceans. I think that this is something the regulator should take into consideration, as we are doing at EU level between EU member states on the use of specific chemical substances and the ban of others which are really harmful for the health of the people. The port security program in the other area, result area 3, is supporting these monitoring activities of the country so that they will be able to monitor their maritime zone, their territorial waters. The program will do it with the provision of equipment which will be managed, installed, and controlled by the countries themselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Michele. Mrs. Lydia, if you want to add anything to what our panelists explained as per the different comments and questions?
It's very important to take note of the regulations that are currently there. I am sure very soon they will be rolled out for consideration, and way forward will be brought forth. When I look at the room, I see a very bright future because for obvious reasons, we can see the support that we are getting from the aspects of maritime education and training, especially from the marine sectors. Therefore, my challenge is to the participants in the room to be proactive in getting to learn some of the new emerging fronts in the industry.
Thank you, Mrs. Lydia. So I come to Mr. Director Sergira. You know, there are lots of projects, lots of partnerships when we talk about Kenya or in the region. Or can you elaborate on the regional partnerships and initiatives which are currently in place to address marine pollution, and how can they be strengthened?
The Gulilita project and the PROC project is a project undertaken by the IMO.
IMO?
Yes, by the IMO to ensure that our seas are clean. Another one is about the East African community but this one is for inland waters.
Okay.
Not for the seas.
But still, it's about
inland waters.
Containing pollution.
Through the East African community. There is a Lake Victoria Basin committee that is also involved in the cleaning up of the Lake Victoria. The others is a partnership we have through port through ship inspections in the region where we have IMOU, we partner in terms of inspecting of ships in the region. And then we are not forgetting the host, IOC. Yeah, you are here because you have come as IOC, and that is why you are here. So we are not forgetting the Indian Ocean Commission, which is the convener of this particular meeting. And what we are doing now, we are fighting pollution at the sea and IRO also. There is the MTCC. So these are some of the organizations that we are partnering as a state to ensure that our oceans are clean.
So, Mrs. Lydia, to what Mr. Segera said, you want to complement?
It takes a bit of a very practical trajectory because we definitely have to complete our pilot projects in Kenya and within the region. from the results of the pilot project, that we are able to approach specific international financial institutions as to how they can support specific ports in the region. So this goes into country envelope development for green port policies. And you'll note that in the subject matter of energy efficiency, which is linked to MAPOL Annex 6, energy efficiency projects that we are having are being supported by international financial institutions to promote the ports to become green. And at this point, he will give the next step as to how this will be of practical benefits to the
So,
ports.
so Mr. Baru, you can complement to what Ms. Lydia said.
We have the MTCC Africa mainly focusing on capacity building in the maritime and shipping industry. And it has two approaches mainly. One is through pilot project demonstration. And these pilot project demonstrations look at port infrastructure. How can it be made made smart, for example? How can port infrastructure be aligned into being green? And also the energy efficiency part, which focuses now on the vessels themselves. I'd also like to talk about the Green Voyage 2050. It's a project funded by Norway and implemented by IMO. It's similar to Glolita project. However, the Green Voyage is basically focusing on reduction of emission.
Reduction of emission.
Emission from shipping, and the Glolita is focused on marine reduction of marine litters from shipping.
So, Mr. Kibwana, Dr. Stallone, any important element you want to add concerning the regional partnerships and initiatives?
At the ports, we receive a lot of cargo. So some of that cargo could be condemned by a regulatory authority like the Bureau of Standards and or Port Health, and it requires to be disposed to avoid being consumed by the public. Most of the disposal facilities that we have currently are private facilities, and that sometimes poses a challenge in terms of the volume. You could find maybe a whole consignment has been condemned and fit for human consumption. Could be having maybe 20 containers. How do you handle 20 containers? But in the meantime, we normally work with the private sector, and the National Environmental Management Authority, NEMA, has licensed several waste reception and destruction facilities to deal with that.
Even the best and the most efficient and organized and well-prepared countries cannot do it alone. Something else, the pilot project as undertaken by Kenya through the MTCC, it's an initiative which should be shared to the other partners, to the other neighboring countries, and then move forward under that direction.
So my next question is to Mrs. Lydia. When we talk about capacity building, when we talk about, advanced education, how can regional educational institutions and research centers contribute to the development of innovative solutions for marine pollution prevention and control?
When we are bringing on board the regional aspect in maritime, for sure it emanates from the international aspect. Member states are members of the International Maritime Organization. So we have different regions in the continent. When we are coming closer to the African continent, we have several regional organizations, starting with the IOC. We also have the African Union. Perhaps I can loop in MTCC Africa into that, quote unquote. And for this reason, it's very practical to have the bearing of the conventions which are being supported by all member states world over, the 175 member states of the IMO, the conventions in the marine pollution aspects, and through the working groups that are there at the IMO. For example, the working group on the greenhouse gas emissions. We have Kenya being a key part of it. We have other member states in the region being a key part of it, such that when strategies are being developed, when toolkits are being developed, it's from a very wholesome angle that will support the industry. Very soon we'll be having almost all ports in the region being green ports, and if not already green ports, they are looking into ways how they can be green ports in the region. We need to have the technical know-how in the capacity building aspect, and the technical know-how needs to be coupled up with a lot of research from all member states in the region to see how best to support the vision and the mandates of the regional organizations, for example, the IOC.
Mr. Tony wanted to jump into the question concerning regional educational institutions and research. Mr. Tony?
And I'm glad with what the government also did in terms of having a specialized maritime institute like Bandari Maritime Academy, having the participant here also listening to these issues. I'm sure they will go and engage further, debate further, and also do research and come with the innovative solution.
We have to also look at what the international labor or the international research requires, so that as we are building up capacity, we build capacity which is relevant in the world, the people who can be able to participate and work very well in the relevant field of research in the world, and people who can be able to at least articulate issues.
Well, the view of KMA?
For me, research and development is something that needs to be strengthened, needs to be taken as a critical area of addressing marine pollution. And also you need to build expertise.
Research and development is key if you want to advance, but as correctly pointed out, you need resources, you need financial resources, you need human resources that most of the time are not made available, because we know that there is always something else to be done, and then the department, the authority, the agency is not much inclined. But indeed, as technology is evolving and as technology can support any institution, any country in a specific domain, as it is the domain of which we are dealing today on the prevention of oil spill pollution, it's important that each country should invest on it.
So how can regional governments and authorities collaborate to enforce stricter regulations and monitor compliance to combat marine pollution?
Communication sharing is very critical. They come up with a tool, a framework, on how they can be sharing information so that if there is any incident they are seeing somewhere, they can be able to come out very clearly and share the information. The regional MRCCs should be active. Regionally, we need to embrace the issue of satellite. Yes, so that our satellites are strong, that they can read what is taking place in Mauritius. The satellites can be able to read what is taking place in Madagascar and all the other places.
From KBA, how can regional governments and authorities collaborate to enforce stricter regulations?
Harmonizations of procedures.
Standardization.
That brings integration and also partnership and so forth. Here we have an MOU on port state control and so the Djibouti conduct of inspections and so forth. You see that is really working because it's a harmonized system of doing port state control, inspections and so forth. And that facilitates regional integration, partnership, and cooperation.
Thank you, Mr. Kibwana.
If we are all able to ratify the conventions that are able to, the convention like the MAPOL Convention, and domesticating the same, then we can be able to do the enforcement action. There is also broader engagement, like the Djibouti Code of Conduct. It was primarily focusing on issues of piracy, but right now it has broadened and look at issues much wider. Issues like the illegal dumping of toxic wastes. It's also part of the issue that is actually under the purview of the Djibouti Code of Conduct.
Timely information is key when a decision has to be taken. It's important also to ensure that there is whole of government approach and the example and the experience of Kenya having implemented this National Information Sharing and Coordination Center, which is called the JOC, the Joint Operational Center in the port. It's really something to be appreciated. Exercise is not to be done only at regional level, but to start at national level, regional level, and then at international level. It's important that once you exercise, you test what you develop. You test your guidelines, you test your SOPs. Those are from standard operating procedures. And then from there, you move always forward.
Mrs. Lydia, you take on the regional cooperation, collaboration.
Cooperation and collaboration in the subject is very important, looking at it, that it has to be aligned to the legalities of each member state, and it ought to be active.
Thank you. I give the floor to Mr. Raj Mohabier to give the closing note.
We just hope that this event was indeed very useful for you, all of you. And as the director said earlier, that we hope that such interactions would be a regular feature. It is very important to involve everyone, including students, etc., in such an event. I just wish to convey the message to all the authorities together that hopefully we'll meet again at the same time next year to really have this very major important regional international exercise, not just national, where we hope that maybe in the course of that event all of you and many more can come and join us in that event. So thank you very much again, and wish you a good weekend.
I take this opportunity to thank Indian Ocean Commission for allowing us to be at this place. I have learned a lot, so it's a good forum for information sharing. I also thank the KMA, the Kenya Ports Authority, and all the stakeholders, the schools which have come. It has helped me know more about port security and safety in navigation, and also it has helped me know that I have a great role to play in prevention of marine pollution. And as a student, these are the things that you have been learning in class, and coming out here and discussing and hearing people talk about it, it's a good thing for me, and it has helped me know that I have to continue ensuring that the marine space is safe for the future and for a good ecosystem for all of us.
Okay. Now, marine pollution is a major issue. Unfortunately, we have the tendency to think that just as accident happens to others, that marine pollution will not affect us. This is the main challenge that we have. No one country can deal with marine pollution alone if it's at a certain level. Small pollution, of course, we can deal, but when there are major pollutions over 100 or 1,000 tons of oil at sea in our coast, you can't deal with it alone. The number of vessels are increasing day by day. The amount of oil being traded in the world is increasing day by day. So the risks are increasing day by day. And I believe that there is lots to be done to prepare the countries, and all the equipments that would be needed for one country to deal with such a pollution such as Wakasho can't be accessed in one country because it's very expensive to have all those equipments and be ready.